Hi, Ben. My name is Cristina, and my secret is I took a very odd job when I was younger to make any extra cash I could to get through the summer. My friends were shocked at how inappropriate the job was, but I thought, what could the harm be? And curiosity got the best of me.
Today, The Secret Room presents The Accidental Nudist. I'm Ben Ham.
I said to him, so what do you find attractive in a woman? And initially we're talking about, personality. He said, you know what my favorite part of a woman is?
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if I want to hear this.
Today, Cristina tells us about a very odd job she took when she was younger. Her friends were shocked, and now she's ready to tell all.
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you for joining me. Where are you?
Okay, so currently I'm in Melbourne, in Victoria, Australia.
We've had a number of Aussies on the show, and I'm really glad to count you in on this expanding group.
Yeah, me too.
So where does your story start?
Okay, so I grew up on the Gold Coast in Australia. So the Gold Coast is probably the equivalent of maybe Florida or Miami in America.
And it's on the eastern side of Australia, right?
Yes, east side. Miles and miles of beautiful coastal beaches. So we really did grow up in paradise. I feel really grateful for the environment I grew up in. All my family were in Melbourne. My dad's Greek and my mum is Russian-Ukrainian. Parents escaped the war and they ended up in Australia. So my mum, my dad, my brother and I were living on the Gold Coast by ourselves, whereas all the family were down in Melbourne. So
in your secret, Cristina, you told me about how you had a joke that you grew up free range. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because it was kind of funny.
Yeah, so I grew up on an acre block of land. Uh-huh. We were just wild kids. We never wore shoes. My mum didn't bother fighting with us to put our shoes on, so we're always barefoot.
Yeah, completely feral.
Yeah, we're feral kids. We had, we're getting what we call here, they're called bindies. I don't know if you call them the same thing in America, but they're like little thorns in the grass and they get stuck in your feet and you've got to pull them out. And so, yeah, we used to make bonfires in the backyard and we had big monitor lizards and kangaroos and koalas on our property. And my mum really just was happy for us to be outside and out of her hair. So my brother and I were just building trenches and
building trenches,
just whatever we needed to do to keep ourselves entertained. Yeah, he used to have these little action figures, like little G.I. Joe action figures. And so we would dig out a part of the property and fill it with water and make this like mud, this sort of little muddy patch. And then we'd build like little trenches and the little G.I. Joes would go under the trenches. It was like a big war zone.
Got it.
Yeah, just the things that we used to do to keep ourselves entertained.
Probably dragged a lot of dirt back to the house.
Yeah, we did. But we had a back door that led right into our bathroom. So Perfect. We would just go in there and just clean ourselves off and yeah.
And you said something about illegal fireworks being a part of this critical part of your youth.
Yeah. So my brother actually dropped out of school or left school rather in grade 9. He didn't thrive in school. He wasn't particularly academic. It wasn't his forte. He's very skilled with his hands and in sport and everything else. But he really just didn't thrive in the schooling environment. So he left school and after his initial job, he ended up working in construction with my dad. And the job they had at the time meant that they would drive across the border into our neighbouring state, which is New South Wales. And in New South Wales, it was legal to purchase fireworks in some places, but they were illegal to have in Queensland. And so they would go across the border and bring like loads of fireworks home. And because we had this acre property, we would just let them off in the backyard and our neighbours would come up and look over the fence and just watch this huge display of fireworks just in our suburban backyard.
Oh my gosh. Did you get in any trouble over that?
No, but we did have a few close calls. I remember one in particular for some reason, the firework was upside down. And so instead of it shooting up into the sky, it exploded on the ground and we all like jumped in the air. But that was part of the excitement, right?
Yeah, of course.
Needed a little element of danger as well.
I mean, it doesn't sound too bad.
It was great. It was great. I mean, there were definitely some great highlights to my childhood. There was definitely a lot of lowlights as well. When I say that we grew up free range, I think we had a lot of freedom to explore things that maybe tested our limitations and boundaries somewhat. There wasn't a lot of sort of parental guidance around the safeties of fires or, you know, we used to build go-karts and go down these wild hills and ride at the edge of the traffic and do all these crazy things. And that was a really fun part of our childhood. And that was probably something that my brother and I bonded with because we weren't super close, but in those moments, we had a great time together.
And it doesn't sound like there was a lot of parental guidance when it came to wearing shoes either.
No, and you know what? We paid for it. I remember one time I went with my brother and his friends. We were going to I think we were going to McDonald's actually, and it was quite a while away from our house. It was like a few kilometers. Of course, they went off without me, so I was running out of the house, no shoes on. And as I was catching up to them, I remember standing on some like barbed wire. I don't even know why it was there, and it was rusted and it got stuck in my foot. And I remember hopping back home by myself and getting home, and my mum's general reaction when we would hurt ourselves would be pointing to the bathroom and saying, well, you know where the Band-Aids are?
Oh, gosh.
That would be her general reaction. It would be, okay, well, if you're not going to wear shoes,
okay,
you're potentially going to get hurt and you know how to clean it up.
Okay, well, you kind of, you're just put out there to learn life's lessons.
That's it.
Yeah. A lot of this sounds like a lot, very endearing fun, some bonding moments with your brother. There's kind of a subtext that not all was totally right with your family. And you really had some opportunities to learn some street smarts.
Yeah. I think, so far I'm sort of painting the picture that these were the highlights, these sort of fun times. But the day-to-day and the reality was that the family was quite disjointed. My father worked away a lot. I think me and my brother were really fighting for his attention because we didn't get much of it. And my mum really struggled with motherhood. She really, really struggled with it. She knows now that she probably had postnatal. She's been an alcoholic most of her life. So she was very distant. She had a really tough upbringing. I think she's just had a really hard time coping with that. Her maternal instincts don't come to her naturally, and she was never an affectionate mum. She never hugged us, never kissed us, never told us, I love you. Yeah, when I say me and my brother didn't get on a lot of the time, it was because I guess we both had some built up frustrations and we probably took it out on each other a lot because there was just no one else there to buffer that. Yeah, I guess my brother and I did a lot of things that were probably a little bit mature for our years.
Like what?
I would do things like, I guess I'm trying to think about the best way to explain this. I think the way we view life, even from a young age, is to compare our situation with others. And when I started going to school and then going to my friends' houses, I really started to see that difference in how my friends' parents would care for their kids and then how my parents were. And so I would see things like my friends' parents would pack them lunches every day and do their washing for them, and they would all have dinner together at a table. And we didn't really have a lot of that. I dressed myself. I packed my own lunches from a very young age. I did all of these things. And you could say, yep, that's great. It gave me independence. But because that love and affection wasn't there, I really felt like I was being hard done by in a lot of ways. I didn't feel like it was liberating that I could do all these things on my own independently because I wasn't sort of getting that pat on the back or reassurance to go with it. because my mum felt to me very cold and distant, it felt like a chore. It felt like something I had to do to take care of myself and survive, rather than something that, you know, my mum was allowing me to do because I was more than capable of doing it.
Did you feel resentment toward your mom?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of that had to do with her alcoholism, because I would come home from school and I'd be excited to tell her the things I learned that day. And, you know, I would have to bring homework home, and I would want someone to help me with that and sit with me and be interested in me and things that I was interested in. And I would come home and my mum would either be already drunk, or she would sort of be tipsy after even just her first sip of wine. You would just see the sort of fog go over her eyes, and you would just know that she's no longer there with you. She's in her own head. And I'm sure that in her own mind, she was having her party in her own mind, or perhaps, look, the way I've always explained it is that you don't drink to remember, you drink to forget. Mm-hmm. And I know that she had a lot of her own demons from her childhood and a lot of things that she probably would rather forget. You know, I guess I've tried to analyze this over the years, and I don't think there's much use in that. I've really forgiven her for a lot of the things that she's done, and I've really come into terms with a lot of things, and I've found peace in it all, and we've got a pretty good relationship now. It is what it is. And I think I've realized that I need to focus on the relationship we have and not the relationship we don't have.
Very mature.
And I think that was my mistake growing up. I would be always focusing on what I didn't have and this kind of perception that something was missing, rather than this is my story. This is the life that I was giving. These are the parents that I was given. And yeah, it's shaped my character in so many ways.
Well, you were a kid at the time.
Yes. As I was getting older, like, I didn't want my friends to come around because I didn't want them to see this mum that I had that was slurring her words and falling off her chair and passing out on the couch. And,
yeah,
you know, sometimes she'd just start dancing and she'd be having her own little party, but it was very sloppy, and she'd be pulling her shirt up and doing these things that were really embarrassing for me. And so that part of my life was really rough. And then as I grew into my adolescence, my mum was going through menopause and I was going through puberty at the same time.
Uh-oh. Well, that sounds like a recipe for trouble.
You can only imagine the emotions, and yeah, there was a lot going on in the household at that time, and there'd be a lot of screaming matches, and then mum would be crying and I would be upset and I would go to my room, and I spent a lot of time in my room for hours with no one coming to check up on me, or no one coming in to say, you know, did you want to come out for dinner? Everyone would go and have dinner and just do their own thing and, you know, just leave me to my own devices. So yeah, not a fun time.
And I wonder, you know, if the resentment you felt for your mom propelled you to get into any trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want to go home. Most of the time, you know, the school bell rings and you're just excited to get home. But I wasn't, because I knew what was going to be there when I got there. I didn't want to get punched by my brother. I didn't want to get patronized by my mum. Yeah, as I grew older, the way that would sort of play out was I would go to a friend's house and then we'd probably go out to a party. We'd be drinking, taking drugs, smoking. My teenage brain was saying, I'm punishing my mum by doing this. And it wasn't just about doing the drugs and drinking. It was just being out with friends and doing some crazy things like jumping off rooftops into swimming pools and anything I could do to feel something.
Yeah, that sounds kind of dangerous.
Yeah, it was a few times. Yeah, I've been in a few situations that were pretty dangerous. And yeah, I look at them now and go, well, how stupid.
Sounds like there were a lot of reckless nights.
There's a lot. There's a whole treasure trove.
And before we got on air, you alluded to one particular adventure.
That was actually one of the most thrilling nights. I don't even know why we decided to do it, to be honest. So my brother had two really good friends. It wasn't really thought out or planned properly. My brother had these two close friends, and we'll call them Tom and Zach. And Zach was really the quieter of the two. And myself and my friend Jess, we used to go over to their house. We used to actually wag school.
I think that means skipping school.
Skipping school, yeah. I don't know why it's called wagging.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, we would skip school and go to their house during the day, and we would just play board games, drink. We just kill time together. We decided one night we're going to take these fireworks and we're going to go and blow up someone's mailbox.
Oh, boy. Whose idea was this? Was it yours?
I don't know. And do you know what? My dad actually did this when he was a child, and he told us his story about blowing up his neighbor's mailbox.
He should know better.
He should know better.
Than to share this story.
I know. So I think maybe that planted the seed, to be honest. But I don't want to throw him under the bus.
Okay. And, it's so funny because I have a secret coming up in the future that's going to come out pretty soon about a woman who, in her words, quote unquote, murdered a mailbox. And it's a great romp. But maybe this is a new theme on the show.
That's a great way of putting it. I love that. Murder the mailbox.
Yeah.
I would say we sent it off into space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I love that.
Yeah. So we had this grand plan that we were going to sneak out in the middle of the night. So Tom and Zach were going to meet us at our house, and we were going to wait until the parents were asleep and sort of put our timers on, or sort of stay up until midnight, meet up with them, and then go and find a mailbox to blow up.
Oh, boy.
And so we didn't have a target. We weren't out to get anyone in particular. We just wanted to see this mailbox shoot up into the sky. The way our property was laid out, we had this reserve in the back side of it. So it was basically a vacant lot. So it was really easy to access our property from the back end, and you would just jump this really low fence. My brother and myself and Jess, we left in the middle of the night, and parents were asleep and everyone was quiet in the street, and we met up with Tom and Zach, and we just set out on foot to find the victim.
Oh my gosh, it's such a coordinated effort.
Yeah, it was. And I think at first it was just cool just to get up in the middle of the night. No one was around, and we were just sort of walking around having a bit of a laugh. And that was sort of going to be the piece de resistance at the end of the night, was to blow this mailbox and then go home and go back to bed.
Oh my God. Can hardly wait to hear what happens.
Yeah, things took a little bit of a turn.
Uh-oh.
So we went down. So we had this street that we went down, and then you would have to go underneath this tunnel to get to this suburb on the other side. We're still just walking around at this point in time. And I think at that point we started saying, okay, well, we really need to decide which mailbox we're going to blow up. And we kind of wanted to be far enough away from our house that we could run there before someone would find us, but it wasn't so close to home that it would be traced back to us.
Good strategy.
Good strategy. And so all of a sudden, Zach pulls out this flick knife, and he was always a little bit dark. You could see that this kid he could turn. Like, we trusted him. He was the type of person that you'd want to have as a friend, because you know that he would defend you and he would look out for you no matter what. But he also had this sort of bit of a dark side, I guess. So he pulls out this flick knife and stabs this tire in the street.
Just randomly. And
he just stabs it into this tire, and there's this huge sound. It's like, and it's so loud. You know, you're in the middle of the night. It's these quiet suburban streets, no main roads, and you could hear a pin drop. And the sound of this tire, I thought, my God, like, everyone's going to wake up. They're going to find us. What is going on? And I didn't sign up for this. And none of us did. None of us really expected it. It just, I don't know where it came from, but it came out of nowhere. We just started running. We just looked at him and said, what are you doing? And we just ran.
Did it set off any car alarms?
The dog started barking, absolutely. But at first it was like dead silence and then this big whoosh, and then he pops another one and then he pops another one.
Oh,
and
God.
We are running for our life and we're like, he's not stopping. And then lights start going on, dogs start barking. We thought, okay, we're going to get caught and we're going to get in a lot of trouble.
For sure.
You know, I reckon he popped about 5 or 6 car tires from different cars down the street. We couldn't even turn around to see what was happening. We were just running for our lives by that point.
Oh, that's not right.
And we knew we had to get under this bridge to get over the other side to where we needed to be to get home. And so we're running and running and running. Eventually he stops and we thought, okay, we're going to have to just do this really quickly now because people are already going to be out to find us.
Wait, you're still planning to blow up the mailbox after all this?
Yeah, like we had to blow up the mailbox. Like otherwise mission wasn't accomplished. So
You're not deterred.
yeah, and I think perhaps because we had that bridge between that one suburb and the one we were running to, we had a little bit of time up our sleeve, I suppose. There was a really big, long hill to get up and we were already out of breath. We had already been running for our lives at this point. So the next parts happened very quickly because we sort of were running out of time by this point. I remember having the conversation about which mailbox would be perfect, and we really wanted a metal one, and we really wanted it to be just one of those really basic metal ones with the flip lid and the long stem into the ground, because we thought, you know, that's going to shoot up into the sky and that's going to be really exciting to see launch up into the air. We didn't want it to be brick and we didn't want it to be fixed to the ground. We just had this particular mailbox in mind, and we turned to the side and there it was.
Oh my gosh.
This perfect mailbox. And we all just went, that one. My brother was the one to do the deed, and he put the firework in the mailbox and lit it up. In my mind, I thought it was just going to be a loud bang and then maybe some sparks. And I didn't realize that this one firework he had multiple fireworks that were coming out of it, like a festival.
Okay.
So he puts the firework in and
it's like New Year's.
yeah, the first one pops up and goes into the sky and it's like bang. And we're like, great. We watched it for like a second and then we all just said run, and we started running. And behind us, the fireworks kept going. So they're all going off. And then, of course, yeah, dogs are barking, house lights are going up on, it's all happening now. So we're running again, once again for our lives. And at this point in which we get to this intersection, my brother and Zach paired off to the right and Jess and Tom and I paired off to the left, and we ended up splitting up.
Smart.
Yeah, I don't think we had any time to think about it. I just think that it just happened and we didn't have time to reroute, and we didn't really have a plan to go. I think where my brother and Zach went was the wrong way because it was the front of our house. But then in some ways, the way that we went, we were a little bit more exposed to the main street. So Jess, Tom and I actually had to duck behind some bushes and we watched as cars were driving past looking for us.
Ooh. Did the mailbox actually shoot up into the sky? Uh-huh.
To be honest, I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
I saw this blaze of lights in the air, and I didn't even have the guts to go back and have a look at it during the daytime.
Good. I mean, don't return to the scene of the crime. You'll get nabbed.
Yeah, they just see me there the next day taking photos.
Right. For posterity.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are ducking behind the bush.
Ducking behind the bush and trying to pick out the best moment to make a run for it to our house. There was sort of a few cars that were going around and circling, and they were clearly looking for us.
Yeah.
And then we made a run for it, and we split up with the boys, and we get to the back of our house and all the lights are on. And I think, oh my God, this is no good, because that means that my parents are awake.
Okay.
And probably noticed that we're not there.
Yeah. Would they have heard the explosion?
Look, I don't think so. What ended up happening is the lights are all on and we're thinking, oh no, they've called the cops, or, you know, they're going to show up next. But I think my parents were a little bit more, I think they were giving us the opportunity to come back first. we had left, but we left my dog inside. As soon as we'd taken off, he had alerted my parents that we had gone. So he started barking and crying out, and we didn't even think that this could be a problem. And yeah, he woke them up and they just stood on the porch and waited for us to return. And we're covered in mud because we had gone through these back streets and under this bridge, and we're filthy and out of breath. And they just looked at us and said, "Get to your rooms now and we'll talk about it tomorrow."
Yeah, situation normal though. You were always covered in mud.
Yeah, the mud wasn't the issue. The issue was we had snuck out in the middle of the night with my brother and his friends doing God knows what.
Right.
And I was grounded after that.
And so you said that your family didn't really spend a lot of time together, and that one thing that you did to pass the time was to watch TV. And there was a show that kind of vaulted you into what is your secret.
Yeah.
All right, you've got a taste for Christina's free spirit. Now let's find out where it takes her. It's quite the journey, and it's ahead as we continue. And we're back with Cristina as we set the stage for her secret with a TV show that set her on a course for adventure.
So there was a show we used to watch called Getaway.
It's a travel show.
Travel show, yeah. And the host would go to a different location, and I would watch that and just think, wow, I can't wait until I turn 18 and I can travel the world. And that was really the one thing I really wanted to do. I used to visualize and fantasize about traveling the world and all the places I'd go to and the things that I would do. And my motivation to go there was so much so that I didn't even want to get into a serious relationship.
You wanted to be able to spread your wings.
Yeah, exactly. So at the time, you could get a 2-year working traveling visa for England, and that meant that you could stay in the country for 2 years and you could work for a portion of that time or the entire time. But then after that, you would either have to get permanent residency or perhaps sponsorship through work. I wanted to go for as long as I possibly could.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, it didn't feel like a long time. Definitely went really quickly when we were there. But at the time, you had to save up and you had to have £2,000 in the bank. Our Australian dollar wasn't great at the time, so it was about $5,500. I had just turned 18. I'd saved a little bit more and flew over there. And in fact, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it by myself or with someone, but one of my close friends at school decided she wanted to do the same trip with me. So we ended up traveling together, and our first destination was living with her auntie and uncle who lived over in Earl's Court in London. Oh, fabulous. Yeah. That's great you had a soft landing. But what year was it? 2006. Did you have a smartphone? No, this is pre-iPhone. You know, we didn't have camera phones. I had my own little digital camera that I took with me, and I would put it around my neck on the little cord. Right. Okay. And so you didn't have, WhatsApp to connect back to your parents with every hour and to coordinate with friends. You were just heading out on your own with your friend. No, absolutely not. And I said to them, if you don't hear from me for 6 months, don't be alarmed. Oh my gosh. I'm just out having a good time. Tell me about your travel buddy. Look, we had a great time. I was the type of person that would be up at 6 a.m. and I'd be wanting to explore the town, whereas she liked to sleep in late. But aside from that, we had a great time. You've got to set about to find a job pretty fast, right? Because you don't want to burn through your cash. You're planning on supporting yourself for a couple of years. Yeah. The first week or two, our plan was just to explore and just to enjoy it. And then very quickly, that became the reality. We wanted to keep that money in the bank just in case. Of course. We needed it for anything that might come up. And the good thing about England is it's so close to Europe. And back then, and even now, you can get these $50 flights that would take you to Paris for the weekend. And it was just so cheap to fly to any country in Europe. Ryanair. Yeah, Ryanair. There was a couple budget airlines.
EasyJet.
Yeah, EasyJet, exactly. Yeah. I guess our sort of rough plan at the time was only to stay at each job for about 2 to 3 months and then travel a bit and then get another job. And that was kind of the rough idea anyway.
Well, that's so adventurous. I mean, I would be petrified if I gave up one job that I wasn't going to find another one. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like back then, I didn't really think about it. I think we were the novelty over there. We were the Aussie girls. You know, everyone loved us. We were just full of energy and up for anything. So when we would go into any situation, people would just be so excited. And, oh, you're from Australia, da, da, da. The first job we found was actually not in London at all. It was in the Cotswolds.
Oh, the countryside.
Yeah, it was. So that's where we started.
All right. Well, tell me about this job.
Yeah, it was a pub. It was a really cool pub. It's a very horse-orientated area. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of horse. I don't know if I explained that well. Horse-orientated.
That's fine.
A horse walks into a bar.
See where that goes.
There was a lot of horse trainers out there and shooters. We'd get the guys coming out after a day of shooting and they would hang all their pheasants over the railing at the front of the pub. And they would be all kitted out in these sort of old plaid vests and these little hats, and they'd have their guns slung over their arms. And it was just like going back in time.
Mm-hmm. And what was the pub called?
So the name of the pub was called the Hollow Bottom.
Okay. That's hilarious. What does that mean?
I still can't say it now without laughing.
Okay.
So the owners were Scottish and they were great. One was the chef and he was fiery and you didn't want to get on his bad side, but he was still great. And the other one was sort of like the face of the business. He was behind the bar and he'd pop in and we'd end up staying up late and having a few drinks with him. And it was one of the first things I asked, I suppose. I said, what's with the name?
Yeah.
He said, well, it's at the hollow on the bottom of the hill. So we had a hill and then it's sort of at the base of the hill and that's where the pub is. And so they called it the Hollow Bottoms.
That's a great name.
That was their reasoning behind it.
It actually makes sense.
My dad came up with a new name for it and he used to call it the Empty Arse. And so every time I'd call him, he'd say, hey, Chris, how's the empty asshole going? Okay, great, Dad. So a lot of times when we found jobs out there at pubs, the way that it would work is you would work in the restaurant or the pub downstairs, and then upstairs you would sort of have the living quarters of the staff. So you would have a bedroom, a bathroom, and everything on site. And your accommodation would be sort of incorporated in your wages.
Great.
And usually a meal at the restaurant as well each night.
Room and board.
And everyone that we worked with and we just adored and got on with so well, they all lived upstairs with us. So it was just like a party every single night. And we absolutely loved it.
So let me guess, you did not leave after 3 months.
No, we didn't. In fact, we ended up staying there for 7 months. And we could have really stayed there longer, but we had decided that come January, we should move on and go back to London, find another job and do something else for a while.
So what was your next job?
Yeah, so it was another job at a bar. And by then I was a real expert at pouring drinks.
Okay.
In particular, Guinness. So a lot of Guinness is such a popular drink over there.
Sure.
They're big beer drinking culture. But I got to the point where you could pour the Guinness in a particular way where you'd get the foam head and then you could trace out a 4-leaf clover with the tap. So
quite an expert.
That was my little specialty. I don't know if I could do it now, but back then I could do it.
Would you say the job in East Dulwich was about as good?
Yeah, absolutely. It was similar deal. We lived upstairs, worked downstairs. Well, we stayed there a lot longer in the end that we anticipated once again. Time flew. We were having such a good time and it went by so quickly.
This job presented a very pivotal moment in terms of your secret because you met somebody who had an influence on you. Yep.
And
who is that?
This person meant so much to me.
Step by step, the stage is being set for an unwitting Cristina A travel show inspired her to head for parts unknown, and now a deep friendship will illuminate her understanding of self. And where it takes her will surprise you as much as it did her. Stay with me. And we're back with Christina's secret.
When I was working at the bar, we would have some regulars that would come each night, and they would sit on the bar and they would always drink the same drink. And in fact, you'd start pouring it as you'd see them enter the bar.
Perfect.
Yeah, you just know, okay, that's, William and he has Guinness, and this is, Jimmy and he drinks this, Scotch and dry. And they would just be there every night. And some of them would keep to themselves. Some of them would want to have a chat with you and you'd catch up on a few things. Some of them would come there with a friend after work and, you'd make small talk, and then they would just give you the thumbs up when they're ready for another round. So you just kind of had these characters that were always at the bar. And there was one man who would come in by himself almost every night, and he would drink red wine, always red wine. And yeah, he was very quiet and he very polite, always left a tip, and a real gentleman. And he would come dressed in a suit, but I could tell that he didn't come past after work. In fact, he would sort of wear a polo t-shirt with a suit over top, but he did look a little bit disheveled.
Okay.
And I feel bad saying that, but he would end up getting sort of the red lines from the wine on his lips. His hair was a little bit undone and unkempt, but he was just so pleasant and polite. And yeah, we just struck up at this friendship.
Oh, that's nice.
Which was odd because I was, 18, probably almost, I was 19 at the time by the time I was working there.
And how old was he?
He would have been in his 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I always enjoyed the company of men because me and my dad had such a close relationship, and I wasn't particularly close with my mum, and I didn't really have a lot of strong females in my life. And I don't know what it is, but I always enjoyed the company of men. I think he was a bit more cautious at first at striking up a friendship with me. I think I was the one that sort of got the friendship going because I just loved speaking with him. He had so many interesting stories about his life, and he was so great to speak to, and he was so intelligent. And yeah, we just got on so well and we became really good friends. And in fact, there became a time where the living quarters, or the place that we were living upstairs, at some point in time, we weren't able to live there anymore, and we were really struggling to find a place. And Bill actually offered for us to move in to his house.
Bill's the man you're friends with.
Yeah, Bill offered for us to stay with him. And at first, I don't think it felt strange. I felt bad, actually. I said to him, well, we can't pay you rent straight away because we're sort of in between work and we're a bit all over the place. And he goes, no, I don't want anything for it. I just want you girls to be safe. And if you're happy to, you can take my bedroom and you can stay with me. And I just, I'll sleep on the couch. It was like a 1-bedroom house. So we ended up moving in there, and yeah, he was just so beautiful. He was like a guardian angel. We just had such a good time.
Well, that's so nice.
And, we tried to do whatever we could to pull our weight. So his garden was overgrown. He was actually going through a lot in his life during that time, which I wasn't fully aware of until we moved in, and we thought, oh, wow, the state of this place is a bit of a mess. But we thought, okay, well, at least there's something we can contribute here. And we started pruning the garden and cleaning it up and doing all these things. And we had such a great time. Did
what he was going through have an impact on you?
Yeah, because he was going through some court cases and they were quite traumatic. So I won't get into too many details, but basically his son was taken away from him and he was trying to gain custody, and it was not of any fault of his own. And so we would take him to these court cases and he would just be so sick and emotional. And a couple of times he would even throw up in the garden outside the courtroom because he was just so ill with the details, just made him feel really sick. I think I just really felt for him and his situation. None of the situation he was in was of any fault of his own. And I was really heartbroken for him. And he would say to me, like, I hope that you can meet my child one day, and I hope you get to meet them. And I'd say, yes, one day we will. But there was also a part of me that felt like maybe that wouldn't be a reality for a really long time. Yeah, it was a bit heartbreaking to see him going through what he was going through. But then at the same time, I guess we had this great friendship, and I knew that he really appreciated that company, and it was good for him to have that. And he introduced me to amazing music. He had all these old records and books, and he even gifted me some of his favorite books that he'd had since he was a teenager. Like, I had to put this whole box on a ship to send back to Australia when I left because he'd gifted me so many great books. And yeah, he just shared all of his life with us, and I was just so grateful for that.
Sounds like an amazing friendship.
Yeah, he was beautiful. Beautiful man.
And so what was it about your friendship that vaulted you into your secret?
Going back to some of the conversations we would have at the bar, we had this amazing conversation one night. I think we're just talking about dating and men and women in particular. And I think maybe I had said to him, you know, would you consider dating again? And sort of what type of person would you look for? And this and that. And he was sort of saying, you know, oh, look at me, like no one's going to want to date me. And, you know, I'm a mess at the moment. And I said to him, I said, that's not true. I said, you are so intelligent. And I said, I can stay here and talk to you all night. And I can't imagine anyone with your intelligence would ever have a problem dating, because you can just hold a conversation. And most of the time, that's what a lot of women want, is to be able to talk to someone that can string a sentence together. And yeah, and I said, and he said, wow, he said, I never really thought about it like that. And as the conversation went on, I said to him, so what do you find attractive in a woman? And initially we're talking about, you know, personality, and then it sort of went into physicality. And he said, oh, do you know what? He said, you know what my favorite part of a woman is? Yeah. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to hear this because it might make it awkward or strange. But his answer really surprised me. And what he said was, the thing I really am attracted to is a woman's shoulders. But her shoulders and her collarbone and kind of, yeah, just her upper body. And 19-year-old me said, oh, okay. I sort of expected him to say boobs or bum or legs or something. And I grew up on the Gold Coast where, you know, that was what the conversation a lot of the guys would have, you know, like, oh, she had great boobs or this or that. I used to call it plastic fantastic.
Plastic fantastic.
Plastic fantastic. Like, you'd get the fake boobs and, you know, the tans, and there was a lot of beautiful bodies out there and a lot of fit bodies, but there was a lot of like Barbie and Ken bodies. And I guess, you know, especially at that age, you're sort of comparing yourself with others and going, oh, you know, my boob's big enough, as, you know, you're just sort of comparing yourself. And I look back then, I think, oh my God, I had an amazing physique. But I just, at the time, I wasn't really 100% confident in my body yet. So having that conversation with Bill was amazing, actually, because it really changed the way that I thought about women's and men's bodies. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, a woman's shoulders are really small, and I can't remember how he described them so beautifully. But basically he was saying a woman's silhouette is so much different to a man's in so many ways, you know, and I had never really thought about the differences between a man's body and a woman's body in that way before. And it really changed the way I started to think about my own body. I mean, I'm still 19. I guess I hadn't really sort of stepped into my womanhood yet. I was very confident, comfortable around people. But in terms of being really confident in my physicality and sexuality, I hadn't really owned that part of me yet. And I still felt like a giraffe here because there's a lot of Greeks and Maltese and Italians, and they're a lot shorter. So I'm probably the tallest in my friendship group here, whereas when I go to Queensland, we're all the same height.
So a couple of questions, Cristina.
Yes.
First, did his response end up ruining your friendship, or you thought that was pretty cool?
No, absolutely not. No, not at all. In fact, I was really grateful for his honesty, and I was really grateful for that perspective.
And I guess my second question is, how did this change your view of your own body? And did it help with your self-confidence?
Look, back then, I was pretty wild.
Yeah, you were feral. You established this.
Yes, I was feral. And I started wearing shoes by the time I got to London. So
good progress.
I did wear shoes by that time.
Good.
But I mean, we would go out on a night out and I would have quite a few drinks beforehand. And I realize now that I probably had a little bit of social anxiety, or I probably didn't have the most self-confidence. I would have to have a few drinks to get ready for the night and sort of bring out this personality, which I thought that everyone really loved. There was 2 Cristinas and I kind of really embraced that Cristina. So, we would go out, I would do something crazy like take my top off and run through a fountain in the middle of winter. And then the next day, like everyone would say, oh my God, that was hilarious. That was so ridiculous. That was crazy, and I'd be dancing on tables and doing all of these things. But that was me with a bit of liquid courage going out and having a good time,
So at this point, Cristina, you've been away from home for a while. Are you planning on just spending the entire 2 years away, or is there going to be shore leave? You're going to get home for a visit to say hi to friends and family?
Yeah, to be honest, I would have loved to just stay in England the whole time, but I had this best friend in Queensland and she was just the most amazing. She was like a sister to me. So I promised her that I would fly home for her birthday and her 18th birthday. It was an important one. So I went back during summer. And so when I came back to England, I just assumed that I could get my old bar job back. I had never really worried about finding work before. But what I didn't take into account was that during summer, all the uni students and college students, they all go on break for 2-3 months. So they're typically the ones that take all of the bar and waitressing work. So what happened was I'd come back from home from this little visit and my job wasn't available anymore. I didn't have any shifts there. My accommodation wasn't available. Fortunately, I could live with Bill at the time. But I started to panic a little bit because I absolutely did not want to go back home. And I did not want to ask my parents for a handout. That was the last thing I wanted to do. And in fact, Mum definitely wouldn't have helped me out there anyway. And Dad did a couple of times towards the end of the trip, but I really didn't want to rely on that. I wanted to do this on my own.
Of course.
Yeah, so I just started thinking outside the box and thought, okay, well, I'd spent probably days going up and down the streets, popping my head into shops and bars and restaurants and asking if they're looking for anyone. And they were all full and sorry, we've got people at the moment, but maybe come back in a couple of months.
Oh boy. Okay. So you're getting a little desperate. You're starting to feel the heat.
All my savings were dwindling and I was living off rations by that point.
So when you say you're living off rations, what does that mean?
I was living mostly off egg omelets because it was filling and reasonably healthy.
So does that mean you need to look for jobs outside service?
Yes. I started to look on sites. I think it could have been Craigslist or something like that. I was thinking like a dog walker, house sitter, house cleaner. Like they're the types of jobs I was looking for initially when the bar work dried up.
You're looking through Craigslist. You're looking for, anything at this point, right?
Pretty much. After a while, they all start to look the same. Housekeeping. So I'm scrolling through these jobs and then one stands out.
Okay.
So I see in capitals, nudist.
Okay. Nudist.
And I thought, okay.
They're looking for?
Well, I thought it was spam, or I thought, okay, someone's posted something explicit or I didn't really think that this was meant to be where it was, but I was so fatigued at scrolling through these jobs one after the other that I thought, I've got to see what this is. So I opened it and it was all pretty normal. It said, I live here and I'm looking for a housekeeper, like 1 or 2 days a week or whatever it was. It said in bold letters, for nudist.
Okay.
If you're interested, please call Charles, da-da-da-da-da-da. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I thought about it and I thought, okay, well, I can work for a naked guy. I thought, okay, maybe he just thought, I saw it and I thought, okay, he's a nudist. Maybe he's a bit of an artistic type. He needed to point it out in the job ad because he didn't want to waste anyone's time. This is what I'm sort of thinking. It's just a housekeeping job, but the guy's a nudist. That's what I was thinking.
Is he also looking for a nudist housekeeper? That must have crossed your mind, right?
Well, it didn't say that. So I thought I would go and give it a try first and go in for the interview and find out a little bit more.
Okay, fantastic. So, wow. How do you get in touch with Charles the nudist?
I just applied through the website and I got a response back pretty quickly. I decided to tell the friend that I was traveling with that I was going to go for this job interview. Mm-hmm. And when I told her what the job was, she wasn't, her reaction wasn't positive.
Okay. What did she say? Like, don't you dare. What are you thinking? You're crazy.
Yeah. Are you nuts? Like, this guy's probably a pervert. Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, come on.
There's so many housekeeping jobs. Why do you have to work for this guy?
Fair question.
The hours suit and is not far. And I'm also really curious.
You're hungry for adventure. And
I said, look, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go for the interview. If he's a creep or I don't feel comfortable, I don't have to do it, I just thought I'll go there first and see what happens.
So what's her job at this point?
Okay, so she had secured a job in a restaurant and she didn't come home with me for that period that I had gone back to Australia. So she secured and kept her job. So she was okay. She was earning money and she was sort of keen to do some more trips to Europe and I needed to quickly save up some more funds so we could keep having a good time.
Right.
Yeah. So after I told her about this job, she insisted on coming with me to the interview and she said, look, I'm not going to come inside, but I'm going to make myself known and I'm going to stay outside just to be safe.
Okay. Good friend.
I wasn't worried, but I also really appreciated that.
For sure.
Yeah. I think at this point I was curious, but I was also kind of excited about it for some reason. I wasn't scared or nervous.
Pushing yourself out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, definitely. So on the morning of, I remember getting ready for the interview.
Okay, what do you wear to an interview with a nudist?
Well, that was the funny part. So I ended up settling on like a white shirt, but then I sort of kept it casual. I think I had paired with some jeans or something.
Yeah. I mean, you could either go casual, you could go naked, right? No need to get dressed up too much for this. That would just be overkill with a nudist.
No, I didn't think so. And I wanted to make a good impression, but I didn't want to go out of my way to make a too good an impression. Like this was still a housekeeping job.
Exactly. Right.
So what happened was we had to catch, they call it the tube, underground rail.
Sure.
To get to this location. And that morning it had been raining and the rain had stopped. But as we were walking to get the train, I remember this taxi drives straight past us into a puddle of water.
Oh, no.
And this huge wave of water comes over me and just drenches me. And I mean drenched. Like my friend was dry as a bone and I was just soaked and I was wearing a white shirt. So now I'm soaking wet and I've got this white shirt on and I nearly just packed it in. I thought this is a sign that I'm not supposed to do this. I'm going to turn around, go home. You know, if I turn around and go home now, I'm going to be late and not make it to the interview. Anyway, my friend said, yeah, you know what? It's a sign. You should probably not do this. And as soon as she said that, it was like the motivation I needed.
I was going to say, maybe it's a sign that you should do it because you do pretty well when you show up somewhere covered in mud.
It's so true. It seems to be this running theme in my life.
Yeah.
The dirtier I am, the better the outcome.
Exactly. You know, and it must have crossed your mind too that, you know, you're basically showing up to interview with a nudist and you're basically wearing a wet t-shirt. Right?
Yeah. And do you know what? The uncanniness of it, I actually thought it would be a great icebreaker. If he doesn't have a sense of humor, then we're probably not going to get on very well anyway. So I actually thought, okay, this is going to be a funny thing to tell him and I'll just see how he reacts.
Okay, so you find the place. Is it in a nice part of town?
Yeah, so it's in a really nice neighborhood. So it's in Kensington, really upmarket neighborhood, beautiful houses. His house was white and very well kept. There was no front door. There was sort of like a laneway on the side. We arrived and he came to the door fully clothed.
Okay, appropriate.
Yes. My friend made herself known and said, okay, well, I'm just going to be outside just here and I'll see you when you're done.
Have fun, kids.
Exactly. And I went inside and the first thing I said to him was, I'm so sorry about my appearance. I said, this taxi went past me and covered me in water and we sort of had a laugh about it and that was that. And he was this quite handsome man, longish hair, dark hair, tall, dressed really nicely, beautiful house. I'm sort of looking around his apartment as we're talking and it's really clean and really white and beige and not a lot of furniture in there, very minimalist. And I'm sort of looking for cameras or I don't know, anything that might be out of place or yeah, we sat down and had a conversation and it was just a very normal conversation. And he told me what he was looking for and he said that he owned a couple of big nightclubs around town and one was actually quite popular. You know, there was a lot of actors and actresses that would go there, the likes of like Sienna Miller and Jude Law, who were really big at the time. Yeah, he had sort of a bit of a reputation, I guess, of owning these successful nightclubs.
Well, nudists are people too.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe he's kind of this spiritual guy. Like I thought I'd walk in and it would be like I thought the place would smell of incense and I don't know. Maybe I had this sort of stereotype in mind, but it wasn't what I expected. He was very generous with his time. He answered every question I had and I was really happy with the responses and there were really no red flags.
Did you ask him if he was going to be naked, if he expected you to be naked?
Yeah, my question was, why did you put nudist in capital letters on your job ad? His response was a very good one. And he said that the reason why he did that was because there were a lot of overseas workers or people that would come from different parts of the world to work in England. And a lot of them didn't have very good English skills. And he didn't want anything to be lost in translation. So he really wanted that part of it to stand out because he didn't want someone to show up for the job ad and not fully understand what they were signing themselves up for. So he's just said he wanted to be very clear and upfront with the fact that he is a nudist and he would be naked when he's at home during the times that I would be there housekeeping. Yeah, I think I was happy with his response. Like it made sense to me. It was a very logical response. So, and then he said the thing that I was worried he would say, and he said, the thing is, I would feel more comfortable and I would prefer if the person working with me could adopt the same lifestyle as me.
So it's about him being comfortable.
Yeah. And I said to him, oh, so you want me to be naked?
Uh-huh.
And he said, well, only if you're comfortable. He said, I wouldn't expect you to do it straight away, but I would really love you to try it. And I said to him, well, I'm not a nudist. And he said, yeah, I understand. And he said, but maybe you could just come and just do a normal day's worth of work. And then if you'd like to try it, you can. And yeah, I just, there it was, the bit that I was concerned about.
Right.
And I hadn't really taken into account. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, my friend's going to say, I told you so. And, and I said, that wasn't in the job ad. And he said, I know. And he said, but you can ask me any questions you want to ask. And so I thought, look, the first day I can be fully clothed. He'll be naked. Maybe I'll just be desensitized with it. I thought, look, I'm going to go the first day. I'll be fully clothed. He'll be naked. And I'll just see how I feel. And if things get weird or uncomfortable, then I'm not going to take it any further.
Okay.
And so that's what I did.
Okay. So, wow.
So So the first day comes around. His house looked pretty spotless. I think it was the week after.
So you report for work, and is he naked when you get there?
Yeah, he was. He kind of played it casual. He sort of said, just let yourself in through the side and then I'll just go through what needs to be done for the day. So I think he was sitting on his computer when I arrived and I just let myself in and there he was. He was there. He was stark naked. All I was thinking was, don't look at his dick.
And that's got to be hard not to do that.
It's so hard because all you want to do is just look and just get it over and done with. And, he's trying to explain to me what needs to be done and I'm not hearing any of it. All I'm thinking is, Don't look at his dick. Don't look at his dick. Don't look at his dick the whole time. And so I thought, look,
oh my God.
When he turns around to take me to upstairs to show me the other parts of the house, I'll just see if I can take a quick look. And I'm sure he was probably amused by that.
He catch you?
Probably. I mean, it's so obvious when someone looks at you, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even to all the guys out there who think they're being really subtle when they're looking at your chest or, you can see, you can see when someone's gaze. Anyway, it was fine and everything was all normal.
Okay.
Look, the first day was pretty straightforward. I was just getting my bearings of the house and what he liked done. He liked to have his sheets washed and ironed. And I thought that was a bit odd. I thought it was a bit much to have your sheets ironed. But I thought, look, this guy's got money. That's what he likes. He wants his bed made like a hotel bed where it's all tucked in and it's all ironed and stiff and nice. And maybe I shouldn't use the word stiff, actually. I'll find some other words to use.
Okay.
Yeah, first day was fine. And in fact, he was working, but you could tell that he didn't really need to do a lot. It seemed like his businesses were running themselves and he was just checking in with the management. It was also daytime and there were clubs, so they were mostly open at night.
I see.
So he'd either be on his computer or taking a few phone calls, but a lot of the time he would come and have conversations with me. And we would talk about everything. He would ask me where I grew up and what Australia's like and how he always wanted to go. And by the end of the day, it wasn't even on my radar that he was naked anymore. It was totally comfortable and normal. And yeah, I felt fine with it.
Oh, you're taking to the nudist lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly what I don't know if that's what he wanted, but I think after speaking with him and getting to know him, at that point in my life, I wasn't afraid to ask questions. And I thought there's no harm in asking whatever questions I like because we're in this sort of vulnerable position together and I'm just getting to know this guy. And he's probably in his early 40s. I'm 19. I'm on the other side of the world. And I thought I'll ask him as many questions as I like and I have the right to. And that was sort of the attitude I had. And so I asked him, like, why are you a nudist? What is it about nudity that, I didn't want to say that gets you off, but what is it about it that
right.
interests you, So Charles had been on this trip to, I think it was Brazil. And what happened was he got invited to this party. I think he had met some people out or on the beach, and they invited him to this party. And it was at nighttime, and he showed up there. And when he got there, everyone was naked. It was like a whole nudist colony of people completely naked. And he's the only one with clothes on. And they all turn around and look at him, and he's out of place. They're probably thinking he's the pervert, right? Because he's got the clothes on.
Right. Who let this weirdo in?
Yeah, and I think his instinct was just to turn around and go away, but he was curious, and his mate spotted him and said, Charles, over here. And he said, well, what is this? Like, everybody's naked. And they said, oh, yeah, this is a nudist colony. This is our, naturalist party or whatever they call it. And we have these moonlight parties, and, it's freeing and liberating, and you should try it. And he said, oh, well, I don't know if I feel comfortable. And they said to him, well, just give it a go. Like, no one's looking. No one cares what it looks like. We're just all here having a good time. And so he did. And he said from that moment on, he was just hooked.
Wow, that was it.
That was it for him. And he said that, much like my experience, after a while, you don't feel like you're naked anymore. And, you forget you've got to go back into everyday life and wear clothes again. And then the more that you're naked, the more uncomfortable and restricting you find clothes. Yeah, after a while, he just started doing it more often and going to more of these parties. And then when he came back home to London, he decided he didn't want to wear clothes when he didn't have to. So whenever he was home, he was always clothesless.
Okay.
Is that a word? Naked. When he started posting for jobs, he thought, well, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. So he wanted to make it known that he was a nudist, but also he fell in love with the lifestyle so much, he wanted the people around him to give it a try as well.
He wasn't creepy at all? Didn't do anything inappropriate?
No, and that was another thing I thought. If his dick moves, I'm out of there.
Okay. So did it?
Not that I was aware of in my peripheral.
Okay, right, because you weren't staring at it 24/7.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to know, Chris, did you become a nudist, or at least perform your housekeeping duties in the buff?
It was the end of my first shift, the very first day, where I was leaving, and he said to me, so what do you think? Do you think you might try it next time you're here? Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, I think I might. We'll see each other next week. I didn't tell my friends this at the time, okay, because they just would have lost the plot. But I had two good friends over there actually at that time. But yeah, I didn't tell them. But the next shift came around and I thought, how am I going to do this? How does one just take their clothes off and just put them to the side and just get on with the day? Maybe
there's a changing room. I don't know.
No, nothing. It was just this one big open house.
Okay.
I said to him, yeah, I think I'm just going to jump in the deep end. And that was sort of our understanding that, I was going to undress and do my job that day naked.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did. I took my clothes off and I just got on with the job, and he acted very normally, and he came in, had a few conversations with me.
Uh-huh. So his demeanor did not change?
Not at all. No, his demeanor didn't change at all.
Okay.
And in fact, at the end of the day, he said, how did you go? What did you think? Like, he was actually excited with what I thought about it, and I said to him, it was fine. But the thing that kept coming back to me was that, so when I grew up, we used to watch Seinfeld a lot.
Oh, there's an episode.
Yeah, and I've worked with a few Americans, and they're like, oh, we don't really watch a lot of Seinfeld at home. I said, oh, we loved it here. Like,
I don't know who you're talking to. Seinfeld's huge.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyway, so we grew up watching Seinfeld, and there's this one episode where Jerry's, the episode where Jerry's got that girlfriend and she's, walks around his apartment naked all the time. And then she starts doing these things like there's one scene where she's opening a jar of gherkins.
Pickle jar.
Yeah. and she's fully naked, and Jerry's sort of a bit repulsed by this action. And as I was working there, I was thinking the same thing. There were some jobs that I had to do where I thought, I just need a bit of a barrier between me and this task.
Right.
You know, even just like cleaning the dishes, and you'd be washing some dishes and maybe some dish soap or something would spray up against you. And, you know, there's just no barrier between you and the dishwater, and you'd feel like, oh, I need to go home and have a shower.
That happened to you?
Yeah, it did.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know, you don't have any pockets, maybe too many breezes. It's just not what you're used to, and maybe a little more convenient to have clothes for whatever reason.
Yeah, like just something would have been good, an apron.
Right. Okay.
But it's funny because I think being naked with an apron on would have felt more naked than being fully naked.
Interesting. Okay. Could have been.
It's really strange. It got to a point where I thought, oh, I've got to be really careful I don't just step outside. I was worried that I was going to leave the house naked.
That's hilarious.
Because I just forgot to put my clothes on.
Right. Funny. Okay, so you were in it.
I'm in it. I tried it. I thought it was fine. I went home that night and I actually felt like a little bit excited about it, or maybe excited is not the right word. I just felt kind of proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds like a strange thing to say, but there was something about it that felt quite empowering and liberating.
Well, you've done something new that's a little bit challenging.
Yeah, I have. And I know this sounds a bit, I'm fully aware that I'm telling this story from the point of view where I had this really positive experience with a man that I didn't know in a very vulnerable situation. And I don't want to sort of downplay the fact that I can say, yeah, I weighed up all the risks associated. You know, I'm an excellent judge of character and I felt really comfortable, and I can say all of those things. But I know that there's a lot of women out there that have probably been in situations a lot less black and white and have perhaps been taken advantage of. I feel like this experience was really liberating and empowering for me, but I'm also very aware that as I'm telling it, I'm not trying to say it from the point of view where everyone should go out and do all these things that maybe they feel a bit fearful of and they'll feel liberated and empowered. I think this was a very unique situation. I also know that I did it for myself. Even though I needed the money, I didn't necessarily do it for the money. The money wasn't like that great. It wasn't amazing. And I didn't really do it for the money. I did it for the experience, and I did it to kind of challenge myself. And I did it because I was curious, and that was my choice at the end of the day.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And you did take the time to suss the situation out.
Yeah. So after day 3, I thought, look, there was this point in which we'd become pretty, I wouldn't say good friends, but we'd really gotten to know a lot about each other by then. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot of cleaning going on. There was a lot of me standing around ironing sheets and folding some clothes. There wasn't a lot to do. And I started to think that maybe Charles actually just wanted the company more than anything.
Oh, he was looking for a friend. I
think so. And yeah, and I do think that a lot of the people he interacted with were people that worked for him, people on the club scene. He didn't have a partner. His family didn't seem to live close by. All of his nudist friends were sort of over in South America. Yeah, I think he was just looking for some company as well. Like, even though I was doing it for the experience, after like the 3rd or 4th day, you get to the point where it's not really thrilling or exciting anymore, and it's just a housekeeping job, and you're really looking forward to your bar job opening up again. I reckon I was only there for 5 or 6 days in total, 2 days a week for like 3 weeks before my previous job was available. So it wasn't a very long time. But there was this one day, so I'm ironing the sheets. There was this beautiful piano, and I said, Charles, can you play the piano? And he said, oh, I can actually. And I said, well, can you play me something? And he starts playing the piano beautifully. So he's playing the piano. I'm standing there naked, ironing the sheets. Mm-hmm. And I think I just have this moment of clarity where I think, how the fuck did I get here?
Right.
It was just this sort of bubble, just this sort of little moment where I just went, what am I doing?
It is a unique scenario for sure. Do you remember what he was playing?
Yeah. I can't, and I really wish I did because it was wonderful. And I was surprised at how good he was. I thought, I always thought that people have these pianos in their house because, I don't know, they look nice, but he could actually play, and he could play really well. That was amazing. I was getting this private performance from this naked guy on a piano and I'm there ironing his sheets naked, and there's nothing sexual going on between us. And it was just so unusual.
Very odd.
But it was funny and it was hilarious. And I think after that day, I got my bar job back, and I think I decided at that point that I didn't really need to do that anymore.
So how did you break the news?
I didn't feel like I owed it to him to commute across town to go tell him to his face, look, I've got my old job back. I don't need to work here anymore. It was always very casual. And like I said, I really felt like he didn't really need a house cleaner. It was maybe for the company as well. Yeah, I ended up telling him by text.
Must have been a bummer for him. I mean, it was working out kind of nicely.
Yeah, it was. And I actually, we got on quite well. And I'd love to speak to him again. I would love to know what he's up to now. I would love to know how he went with future employees.
For sure.
I would love to know all the stories. He was really lovely, and he sent a message back saying, no problem at all. And it was such a pleasure getting to know you. And thank you for being my house cleaner, or however he worded it.
Right.
But the last line he said was, by the way, he said, by the way, you have a beautiful body. And that's how he ended the message.
Did that, wow, did that kind of ruin it for you, or how did you take that?
Do you know what's funny?
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that thought, I wish he won't comment on my body because that's not what it was about.
Right.
But then there was also a part of me that felt like I would be offended in some way if he hadn't.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
So I found it flattering. When I showed my friend, she was pissed off and repulsed and said, I told you he's a pervert, he's looking at you the whole time. And I said, but I guess I didn't have a problem with it, So, yeah, I actually found it fine. And again, it was a bit of like acknowledgement and recognition that I had this beautiful physique. And yeah, I really felt really confident in my own body after that.
Well, that's great. And so did you have a chance to talk about this with Bill? Since he kind of, might have opened you up to, receptive to a situation like this.
I'm not sure. I don't remember speaking to him about it at all. And to be honest, I didn't really even tie that conversation with Bill to this event at all until years later, until I reflected on it a bit more and thought, oh, well, that was a funny, spontaneous thing I did. But why did I really do it? And now when I look back on it, I think, wow, I think I really needed to do that. It really changed me as a person, and it really helped me step into my womanhood. And like I said, it was just such a liberating, empowering experience for me. I didn't want to have any other opinions or judgments placed on me. I already had 2 friends over there that weren't happy with the situation. So I didn't tell many people at the time. I didn't tell my parents at all, of course. And I didn't tell any other friends back at home. I just sort of kept it to myself. And I thought it'll be a great story to tell one day, but I'll tell it later when it's over and I'm ready to tell it.
And here you are.
And here I am. I remember even back when I read the job advert, I remember thinking, what a great anecdote to have. I remember thinking this would make such a great story one day. And, part of the reason why I went overseas and went on this big adventure was to create some stories and to come home with these stories. So this was one of those things. And I think if I didn't take it on, I would have regretted it.
Well, you have grabbed life by the horns, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
there's just something about this story that, yes, it's a great story to have. You had this very unusual adventure, and it's just so interesting. And it seems to have really made an impact on you, because to this day, you still have very significant feelings about it.
I do. And like I said, even when I was in it, I remember thinking, I can't wait till this is over and I can tell this story.
Right.
I remember even having that clarity in the moment where I thought one day there's going to be a funny story to tell people. I guess a conversation would come up and you'd say, what's the strangest job that you've ever had?
Well, there you go.
And then everyone would share, and then I would say, okay, well, one time I worked for this nudist and everyone would be so intrigued, and then they'd be asking all these questions.
Tons of questions.
So initially it was just a great story,
Uh-huh.
And I guess like a unique story.
Initially.
And
so what is it now?
I think now it's an incredibly important story. It was such a pivotal point in my life where I really went from being this wild teenager to growing into this woman and stepping into this power that I didn't know that I had as a woman. And I think that it gave me a lot of self-love. And with that, I ended up attracting a lot of beautiful people into my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think before that time, I didn't really love myself. I judged myself a lot and I was very harsh. I was my harshest critic. And I probably attracted a few friends that took advantage of me a bit because I was just so giving and generous. So after this experience, a few things happened. I got into this really beautiful relationship with my first love, and we're still friends to this day. I think it really helped me with my career too, because I was really confident in myself. So I got a lot of roles in management at a young age, and a lot of people trusted me to run their businesses. And it just sort of went on from there. But I do think that experience was really important for me and my growth. And I didn't really value that part of that experience until later in life.
Now, you say it's helped you with work and your career. Is it on your resume?
No, I never put it on my resume.
It was more of a character building experience.
It could go two ways. It could work to my advantage or disadvantage, depending on what job you're applying for.
So you can use it to shape a resume if it's ever appropriate. Like if you ever go be a house cleaner, or if you're ever going to go work at a nudist colony.
I've always got that one in my back pocket just in case.
I guess you do. So do you have any way to get a hold of Charles to, ask him these burning questions you have? Like, how's he doing? Did he ever get married?
No, I don't.
What a shame.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I know I don't have anything. I tried to go back through some old emails to see if I could find the job ad. I don't have his phone number. I tried to find the clubs that he owned. I don't even know the names of the clubs.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a part of me, that thinks maybe didn't even give me his real name. I met this person. I know so much about him, but then yet I know very little about him and his public persona.
Well, and you didn't know him very long.
No, it was such a short amount of time.
But you know where he lives.
I don't have his address anymore either. And I couldn't find it. London is such a condensed city. And, you could drop me in the middle of Kensington and I wouldn't know left from right.
Well, maybe he'll hear the podcast and get in touch.
That would be amazing. If he gets in touch with you, tell him to give me a call.
I will do that. And so speaking of that, of the podcast, are your parents going to hear this?
Possibly. I don't have a problem if they do.
Does anybody you know listen to the podcast?
Yes. In fact, funny story. So the other day I said to my mother-in-law, I said, oh, guess what? I'm going to be on a podcast. Her immediate response was, oh, it's not The Secret Room, is it?
What? Really?
Yeah. And I said, what? And I said, of all the podcasts, why did that one come to mind? She goes, oh, because I love that podcast. I've been listening to it every day.
Oh my gosh. And she doesn't know that you listen to The Secret Room.
No idea.
Wow.
No idea. Never spoken about it at all. And so I said to her, well, actually, it is.
Oh my gosh. And what did she say?
She said, oh my God, that's amazing. What's your secret? And she goes, no, wait, don't tell me. I'll hear it when you're on the podcast. And I said, no problem.
It would have been crazy if you hadn't had that discussion and then she had just been listening and heard you.
I know, right? And there's a part of me that wants to tell a few people and just say, hey, if anyone's interested in the story, you can listen to it in its entirety.
Well, it's going to be there for you to do just that.
Yeah. At the same time, I sort of want to put it out there and just see what happens and see if anyone recognizes my voice and says, hey, heard you on this podcast.
Amazing. Well, one person will, you know that, and that's your mother-in-law.
Of all people. Oh, well, it's out there now. She's great. So
well, that's awesome.
She will think it's hilarious. And
so how's your relationship with your brother these days?
These days, we're great. We've traveled together and he's awesome. And yeah.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. I wonder also, are you in touch with Bill?
No, and I'd love to be. This is a bit of a sore point for me because I thought Bill and I were going to be friends forever. And to me, he's still one of my best friends and one of the most amazing people I've met in my life. But this is my fault. It's my fault that the friendship hasn't stood the test of time. So when I came back from England to Australia for that 18th birthday, that was my best friend, Blair. I called her my sister. We grew up together. She was like my soul sister. Died the next year.
I'm sorry.
After her death, I just I think I just shut down. I really shut down, and it was the most painful thing that I've ever gone through. And I had so much guilt for not waiting another year to go overseas and taking her with me. And I really felt like I should have been here. So that happened. And when I came home, the Gold Coast didn't feel the same anymore. And that was also part of the reason why I ended up moving to Melbourne. Bill and I kept in touch over the phone, but it was sort of long distance phone calls and bad reception, and there was always a lag and sort of expensive phone calls at the time. You'd have to get call cards and we'd email here and there. And in fact, he ended up meeting this amazing woman and he proposed to her and they were going to get married. He told her that they would get married in New Zealand. So it would be close to myself and my friend.
Nearby. You could go over quite easily.
Yeah. He said, I'm not going to get married unless Cristina can be a part of the wedding in some way. And that was one of our last conversations.
Oh.
And I know that I don't know what happened. He tried to call me a few times. I answered the phone, but the line was bad and it'd say, look, I can't hear you. And then I would get off the phone and, I just became a bit complacent with that relationship. And then I think he may have felt that I didn't want to continue the friendship or I needed some space. I did tell him, I was going through, I guess I was still mourning. I just wasn't in the position to maintain this friendship, which sounds really slack. It sounds awful, but I just wasn't in the right headspace. And he gave me the space that I felt like I needed. And over time, we just lost contact. And I tried calling him and emailing him years later. And I'm really worried that he's dead or, I haven't been able to contact him in years now. And in fact, I did email him again the other day to tell him that, I'm doing this podcast. And also just because every couple of years I try to reach out and I don't know if he receives them. And that's why I think maybe he's passed or maybe he's just moved on. I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
I would love more than anything to see him again and to speak to him again and just to give him a big hug.
Oh. And
I hope he's doing well. I hope he's around and he's thriving.
And you never found out if he actually got married or not?
No, I don't. And I hope he didn't wait for us. I hope that, he didn't postpone it because of me, because he wanted me to be a part of it in some way. Yeah, I feel like such an asshole. I feel like such a prick because he meant so much to me. And I want him to know that, we weren't sort of taking advantage of that situation because we were living with him rent free. His friendship meant so much to me and still does to this day.
I'm sure he knows that. Friendships have a way of moving on, particularly if you're not in the same area. We change, we grow, we morph, and sometimes friendships are just for a certain place and time.
Yeah, I think so. And I hope that's the case. I hope he knows that he means so much to me and he's moved on with his life, perhaps with his partner, and his child's back in his life. I know that much because the last time we spoke, he mentioned that also. So I hope everything's going great for him. But again, if this gets to him in some way, I would love more than anything to speak to him again and to see him again.
Well, I hope for that too.
Yeah.
Well, what a story, Cristina. My goodness gracious. You took us around the world and back. And did you ever become a nudist yourself? Did you ever feel that itch to just join the colony?
I could have. I mean, not really. I remember we had a couple of parties in our friend's backyard.
Oh.
And he had a jacuzzi, and it would be this was when winter kicked back in, so it would be cold outside, but we had this hot jacuzzi with bubbles in it, and we would skinny dip. I guess I did take it on a little bit. Funny story. As we're talking, all of these stories keep coming to mind, but I'll tell you this one. So when I was 8 years old and my brother was 9, my parents rented our house out and bought a 4-wheel drive, and we went on this trip around Australia for 6 months. And we lived out of our 4-wheel drive and then a caravan, and then we moved to Melbourne and then moved back to Queensland. This all happened in the space of a year and a half. And so when we were on this adventure, we were in this place called Broome, and Broome's a really beautiful part of Western Australia. They've got beautiful beaches and beautiful sunsets. And I used to love collecting shells on the beach, and there'd be all these amazing rock pools, and you could get these beautiful shells, and they were in perfect form. And I collected so many of them on our travels. And anyway, I remember there was this pile of rocks dividing the two beaches, and I was just in my own little world collecting these shells, and I was looking down. I had my head down the whole time. And as I'm going through these rock pools, I'm also walking over this rocky wall. And then I'm on the other side of the wall, and then I'm still walking with my head down. And I hear this voice behind me, and it's my mum calling out, "Cristina, Cristina." And I look up, and all of a sudden, everybody's naked.
What?
And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm 8, and I hadn't seen a lot of nude adults in that time. There's men and women, and they've got everything out. And I had just stumbled across a nudist beach.
Oh, wow.
And my mum's running to come and get me and pull me back over the other side of the rocks. Uh-huh. And so I guess that was my first experience witnessing a nudist colony. If you'd call it that.
Little did you know what was lying ahead.
Little did I know. So maybe it was in my destiny. It was on the cards for the future.
Sounds like it to me, for sure. Well, Cristina, what a great way to wrap this story, and what an interesting way to sort of come into your own. It was a part of growing up, certainly. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was so good to tell it finally in its entirety. Because as I said, I've told this story before, just in little snippets, just of the fun parts. But it is nice to go back and reminisce and just tell it in its entirety. Yeah.
From a spirited adolescence to a carefree adventure and the heartbreak of a lost friendship, Cristina developed her sense of identity, and she returned home to her native Australia a more confident woman than ever. Despite some perils, her youthful globetrotting adventure was a win. and I just checked in with Cristina this weekend. Hey, Cristina.
Hey, Ben. So I never fully adopted the nudist lifestyle. However, I did become a lot more comfortable with nudity in general. There may have been a few naked jacuzzi nights at friends' parties overseas, but I can confirm that I prefer to clean my house clothed these days, unless it's a shower, of course.
See the empty ass? I mean, the hollow bottom. And a great shot of Cristina hanging on to a koala bear crossing sign in Australia. The pictures are available right now on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Search for our handle at Secret Room Pod.
On the next Secret Room Unlocked, Jude from the Nazi Connection and The Juice and the Squeeze is back with updates and to respond to social media posts about her secret. Join me, Susie Lark, in 1 week. Unlocked is available for members who support on Apple Podcasts and at patreon.com/secretroom.
The Secret Room Unlocked is our follow-up and originals podcast hosted by Susie Lark. And you can support your favorite indie podcast that could with a subscription. You could also take advantage of our sponsor codes. They're all listed under the sponsors tab at secretroompod.com. And while you're there, you can submit your own secret. We're always on the lookout for the next great story. Maybe it's yours. And next time, Sloane tells us how she never would have received a prestigious award had she not been blackmailed by one of her students first. It's a heartwarming tale of a small-town teacher's triumph over poverty and adversity. Come back in just 2 short weeks. Thanks today to producers Susie Lark and Luna Patel, and of course to Breakmaster Cylinder for the music. This is The Secret Room, a podcast about the stories no one ever tells. I'm Ben Ham.